Hi guys, how's it going today? Hope you're doing well. You know, we got told that suicide is this abhorrent thing. It's this thing of selfishness and self-absorption, and it's careless and just kind of wrong. I don't really think like that. Of course, I don't want anybody to commit suicide, and I certainly don't want to commit suicide either. Let me just make that very clear. And I have no intentions of doing so. But I think as time goes by and as life rolls on, and I think you start to lose hope. I think you do naturally start to see a decline in optimism and expectations in life. And the disappointments pile up, the frustrations, the regrets pile up, the guilt piles up. And I think just eventually you just kind of become just kind of void. I think you just end up in a place where you just kind of give up on having any real sense of optimism or hope about the future, really. That doesn't mean that you should just give up on life necessarily, but I do think, unfortunately, that you can, at a certain juncture, reach a point of kind of no return, really, and that's why I feel sorry for those people who feel that they can no longer grapple with that reality, that they can no longer deal with feeling a sense of emptiness and a void that they can't fill with anything. It's not just about feeling sad or depressed. It's more than that. It's this deeper, really dark, cemented notion that there's no point, that nothing you're going to do is going to really bring you any real sense of happiness or joy anymore. And that you just can't stand to bear being yourself any longer. You can't stand to look at yourself in the mirror anymore. You just cannot stand the thought of going on. And I think it happens gradually. It's a process in which the inevitabilities of life pile up on you, and the accumulation of tolerating a world that's unfair, and tolerating a world that doesn't seem to have any real sense of justice or morality or ethics. And feeling like there's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you can really sink your teeth into in any real meaningful sense that you're going to make much of a difference in the world. sure, you might make a dent here and there, but in any real genuine universal sense, you're not really making much of a difference at all. And I just feel sorry. I feel sorry for people who just reach that very dark road, mentally speaking, emotionally speaking, where there's nothing left. There's just no joy anymore. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It just feels like there's nothing left to cling on to in life. Where the things that you were so hopeful for crush you. Where the people that you thought liked you, cared about you, respected you, trusted you, had your back. When you realise that those things either aren't entirely true or aren't true at all. Where you realise that you're in a world that you want to make a difference and you want to make it better, but you cause yourself more and more problems by trying to do that. And I think just I'd say probably in your 30s or 40s, I think there's a point where you just start to despair and you just start to realise nothing I'm going to do is going to make any difference. Why bother? What's the point? And yes, that is defeatist, I guess. But it's also just a realisation, it's just an honest, deeply difficult but honest reflection and realisation that the way in which people operate a lot of the time, the way in which systems operate, the structures in which society and culture work, and politics and economics work, and it's just so toxic, it's so detrimental to peace and civility a lot of the time, I think, and compassion for each other, and I think that's the thing, is that's the thing that crushes you eventually, is that you realise that there's very little of that. There's very little compassion, there's very little empathy in this world, unless there's something to gain from it by being like that. I'm not. I try to just, as best as I can, be a decent human being given the circumstances. I always try to be courteous and polite and well-mannered and considerate of other people and careful of what I do and what I say. But it's all exhausting. It's fucking exhausting. I can tolerate people in short bursts. I can tolerate socialisation in short bursts, but there just comes a point where I'm just like, I need to go. I need to get away from this. I just need to be left the fuck alone, really. And I think that other people find me difficult to deal with because of that. That they expect a certain degree of energy out of me that I just don't have to give. for as long as they want me to give it. You know, I'd say within an hour or two, a couple of hours, typically I'd say maybe, I don't know, what, 3 to 4 hours, I'm pretty much done. I'm drained, I'm ready to be on my own again, I'm ready to just kind of start telling people to fuck off, really. And sometimes that's difficult. That's a difficult thing to have to put up with, because you always feel guilty for feeling like that. You feel bad for not being able to maintain a certain degree of enthusiasm, or just feeling like you're failing to meet other people's expectations of you or something, or feeling like you're bringing the vibe down or something. It's not that. It's not intention. It's just that I just get exhausted with that high energy. It's just not me. Never really has been. And I think ultimately, I guess I'm saying that is that when you feel like you don't fit in, or when you feel like you're punished in some sense for just being yourself in a world that isn't really designed for people like you, it's not easy to. It makes you feel like that you shouldn't be in it. It makes you feel like I should disconnect myself from it because I don't feel accepted. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel that people respect my personality and my limitations. And it's just that people just always want more and more out of you all the time. And I'm running low on energy at the best of times anyway. I just naturally am. I'm just not a naturally extremely buoyant, happy-go-lucky, extroverted, particularly talkative in social situations kind of a person. I'm just not. I just don't really like being around other people too much. I can tolerate people, but I prefer to not have to do that. See, I think socialization is massively overrated. It's seen as this duty, that you must socialize, you must get out there and meet people and talk to people. And I say fuck that. If you don't want to do that, then don't do it. I'm not saying that you should never do it, but I just don't think that you should feel forced into it. It's like if you want to do it, then fine. But I think anything that you feel that you feel hyper pressured into, or you feel this excessive pressure to engage in and conform with, I don't think you should do it, because it will only bring you suffering. It will only bring you discomfort and psychological pain. It's not worth it. It's just not worth tolerating. So I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to stop partying, nightclubbing when I did at 27, because I just couldn't stand the shallowness of people. I couldn't stand just how fake people really are out in public, and just in general how two-faced people really are, and how people put on a front and people put on a face when they're out in a public setting or around strangers, and then you realise that they're a very different person in reality or in other situations. So I don't know. It's one thing to be to kind of deal with social situations in a respectful and tolerant manner. But it wasn't that I saw it. It was just this sense of, I don't know, it just seemed to me like a lot of fakeness that people, I don't know, it's just something about the eyes in people. It's something about the body language for me. It just screams inauthenticity. It's just screams I'm insecure. It screams I'm desperate to be liked. It screams I'm not confident or comfortable in my own skin, so therefore I have to put on persona so that people will like me, so that people will accept me. And I say fuck that. If people don't like me as I am as a person, then they can go fuck themselves. As far, quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, it's like I shouldn't have to force myself to be something that I'm not, just to make other people happy. It's one thing to do that at work when you're getting paid to do it, but even then, I would say, that's a book your priorities up. It's up to you. If you want to live like that for the next 30 years of your life until you retire, if you're lucky to reach that point, to get a measly, moderate pension package, then that's up to you. That's on you. But I think for the most part, I've tried my best to avoid all that shit. I've tried my best to avoid having to be an entertainer, to be a clown, to be the jester in the social dynamic. But that comes with consequences. If you're not willing to play that game or fitting in, then you'll find yourself backed into a corner in many respects, because those are your options. It's like you're either a lot of the time, if you're not the the popular one, you're not the extroverted one, you're not the personality A type, you're not the excessively ambitious or confident, sparkling, bubbly type of the social group, the friendship group, then and also if you're kind of hypercritical and analytical as I am, and extremely sensitive around other people's emotions and things like that, then you tend to get kind of cast out of the group, not physically, but just in the mannerism, the way that people either include you or don't include you in certain things, or just the way in which conversations are steered, or whatever it might be. And so you end up in a position where you have to isolate. You feel like you have to isolate. You feel like I must find. It's just you just get to a point where you're just so over it that you would rather tolerate being alone. You would rather tolerate isolation, and with all the negative aspects that come with that, and there are many. I've talked about that before on my channel, about loneliness and the mental health issues associated with it. But I think you have to pick your poison in the end. It's like what do you feel like you're getting the most out of? What do you feel like is the thing you can tolerate the most? And while I don't think that you should isolate or become a hermit forever, I do think that until you find the right kinds of people that you can tolerate, that you feel are genuine, then I would say that that's your best option. And going back to suicide, I think that's kind of why a lot of people end up giving up on life, is because they just they haven't found that little clique of people, that friend that they so desperately need, that truly gets them, that allows them to be themselves, that allows them to open up. But it's not always the case, there are just some people that just, I think no matter what, there's nothing you can do for them. They've just decided that, and I've kind of been like that myself at times in life, where nothing you can say, nothing people say to you, nothing people do is really helping you in any way, because you've become stuck in this cycle of rumination, of catastrophizing situations and things people say to you, and everything just kind of gets on top of you, and you become overwhelmed by everything. And it's hard to break out of that. It's very, very difficult to... It's difficult to want to continue when you're your own worst enemy, because you feel ashamed and embarrassed of being yourself, and then you've got other people's criticisms of you on top of it. And when you're someone that's maybe not quite the average mould of typical kind of a person, I guess, or you're not deemed by others to be normal or healthy, or people like to stick labels on you as toxic and negative and unhealthy and self-destructive or whatever, then that clearly doesn't help you either. So I do feel sorry for people who reach such a depth of despair that they just can't seem to pull themselves out of. No amount of exercise, no amount of positive thinking, no amount of diet, no amount of positive affirmations or whatever it is, and is gonna help those people, because they've reached a point where I think it's very easy to reach a point in life where the things that could have once pulled you out of no longer work anymore. I think ultimately what happens is that you lose I think when you've dealt with enough trauma and baggage and just utter shit in life over time, it's easy to give in, it's easy to lose that resilience to keep on going. And I think if you haven't got if you no longer care as well, then you're not even going to try to build or to rely upon coping mechanisms that would have maybe helped you at one time to manage that deep emotional state and psychological sort of emptiness, really. And the thing is, it oftentimes it doesn't look like suicidal ideation, or it doesn't look like depression or deep personal existential grappling or confusion. It looks like humor. It looks like someone diving into a particular hobby or something that they're passionate about. It looks like someone trying their best to put on a front to try and take everybody off the path of suspicion about them. But what they often don't realise is that by doing that, you are creating suspicion upon yourself, because people can recognise that something's off with you. You might not know exactly what it is, but you can kind of tell when something's not quite right with someone. Not everybody. There are always going to be exceptions. There are always going to be little things that slip through the cracks that you didn't quite think anything of at the time, because you've got your own stuff going on as well. And I think probably that's a part of the reason why some people give up on life, is that they just feel like nobody's there for them. Just feel like they've got no support left. It's not just that they've got nobody to talk to. It's that they've got nobody who really wants to listen, who really truly does care, and who really understands them properly. It's not even just for someone to listen. It's just someone to be there. Sometimes, like, the smallest things can really make someone's week, someone's month, someone's day, because you don't know what people are going through. It's easy to, it's very easy to feel sorry for yourself and go into, self-loathing and self-pity, and I think most people deal with that a lot of the time, for all sorts of reasons. But it's one thing to. I think that a lot of the time we often we're quite selfish when it comes to. And I think there's this sort of hierarchy in a sense that we often don't talk about. There's almost like some people are more deserving of time or being listened to than others for whatever reasons, and that's wrong. It's like, I don't think that's how we should deal with things. But I get it. I get that people have got their own complicated relationships with their own backstories and whatever complications are going on in people's lives at any given time, and so sometimes it's difficult for people to. I think some people just don't have the ability to truly take on other people's emotions, but the thing is, some people just don't try. Some people just don't want to. They just don't care. Whereas I think for some people, they've just done so much of that, which probably relates back to their childhood in some way, that they just can't do it anymore. They just don't have the ability to. They're just so broke themselves that they just can't deal with anything else. They just can't possibly pile on any other person's issues, and I understand that that in and of itself can be a cause of depression and probably suicide to a certain extent, because when people feel that they're there for everybody else and nobody's really there for them, that's a really difficult it's a really harsh place to find oneself in. And I think as the years go by, as I was saying at the start of the video, as you age and as life takes its toll on your body and your mind, I think it gets harder. It gets harder to deal with life. It gets harder to want to deal with life. I think you start to lose the ability to adapt to certain things like you once used to be able to do when you were younger. And I think that's probably why so many older people tend to live alone, tend to want to be alone most of the time, because they've just dealt with so much garbage for decades and so many trials and tribulations and ups and downs, personal problems. that I think that you just get just outright worn out. Life just wears you down. It's broken you multiple times over. It's pondering big questions that you can't get an answer to, dealing with the inevitabilities of transitional state of existence, the fact that everything comes to an end, friendships have gone, relationships have come and gone, marriages have come and gone, loved ones are deceased. They're just a constant chain of life, and everything sort of bearing down on you, and just this sense of the weight of everything just starting to crush you gradually over time. And I think it's very easy to become bitter, as I've said on other videos. It's easy to get resentful. It's easy to get angry and disillusioned with life and everything around you. When you start to really think about just how much hypocrisy and double standards that exist in society, and as I said before, just a sense of injustice and unfairness, and just the cruelty of life in general. It's enough to make anybody snap. It's enough to make anybody grapple with the thought of, is this life really worth it? Is it worth continuing on? Is it worth getting up 4 in the morning? Is life worth all the struggles and problems and the challenges and frustrations that come with it, when the only relief you get from it is temporary and fleeting? I don't know. Sometimes it feels like it is, sometimes it feels like none of it's worth it at all. And so I don't know what the answer to that is. And I think it depends on where your headspace is at any given moment, I guess. And so I just kind of felt, was just kind of feeling a bit of a reflective mood this morning. So I was reading something about one of the moons of, I can't remember what it was, one of the gas giant moons. And apparently they've now found, I don't know if it's true or not, it probably needs more research, but there's a potential that one of the moons that they thought had an ocean doesn't have an ocean. And the only reason I say that is because that kind of got to me. I was already kind of in a bit of a deeply reflective mood anyway this morning, but I don't know, it just for some reason, sometimes you read something that just kind of sets you in a mood and you can't snap out of it. And it just got me thinking to how we live. We really do live by hope. We live by expectations. We live by having something to look forward to, having something to cling on to in life. Whatever it might be, your salary, a new job, moving house, a holiday, or an upcoming event that you might be going to, meeting someone, ordering something, buying something. And how we live by hope constantly. We constantly hope that things will happen or things won't happen. We live by the weather, we live by expectations and our own wants and needs and those of others around us. And the sense of obligation to do things or not do things. And I was just kind of thinking about why, I saw a video the other day about, I've seen quite a lot of these on YouTube recently, typically titled something like, why everything feels off recently or something like that. And I was just kind of thinking about it a little bit this morning, and I was thinking, why is that? Why is that? What could I actually, what's going on here? Why doesn't this Christmas feel very Christmassy? Why doesn't anything quite feel the same way it used to? And I suppose part of it is aging and how aging changes our perceptions of things. But I do think that societally and culturally speaking, there has been a shift from the traditional way of life over the last 20, 30 years, I'd say, into this more liberalised, sort of more flexible notion of everything. And what I mean by that is that I think at one time there were standards, there were things that were commonplace. There were things that happened. There were things that was the norm that have gone or have changed over time. And I think part of the dissatisfaction with life these days, if I had to guess why a lot of things don't quite feel the same anymore, and I think it's mostly that we're just hyper stimulated all the time now. We no longer have to wait for certain things to give us a dopamine hit anymore. We can just go online and get our 6-hour streak of doom scrolling or whatever it might be, or 3 hours of entertainment every day until you die, basically. And so we're constantly overstimulated. We're constantly seeking dopamine hits. We're constantly engaged with things that build us up but very quickly drop us down. And so I think in the external world, that's having an impact on how we deal with reality, because we're not, there's no sense that everything's instant gratification now. There's no sense of delayed gratification. It's like now it's, and I think as well in terms of Christmas, everything just it's such a long process before you get to Christmas that Christmas no longer feels the same. When did Christmas advertisements start? End of September, October? So by the time you've got to Christmas, you've had 3 months of, 3 or 3.5 months of seeing Christmas advertisements, Christmas, presents or present ideas in the shops, and hearing Christmas music online or on your radio, on your TV, or people talking about Christmas, seeing the decorations up, months before Christmas, and I think that it's become, it's this oversaturated thing. It's this thing of, there's no sense of moderation anymore. I think that's part of the problem. You know, it used to be that you had to wait for things, and now you don't have to anymore. You know, it's like, and I think that's ruining our self-esteem. I think that's ruining our mental health. It's ruining our ability to be happy, I think. And it also means that we're less present now than we used to be. We're so distracted by social media and the online world in general that it's become more appealing, more interesting than the real world. That's why things feel off. That's why things don't feel the same anymore. Because our mind has been warped by 30 years of the internet, 20 years of social media, you know, the last 5 years of AI, and whatever is coming down the line will have even more impacts on it. And this does link into, you know, mental health and probably even suicide to a certain extent, because so many people are living their lives through the lens of others. They're looking at other people's lives and feeling inadequate and massively insecure, and that their lives are not good enough, that they're not good enough, that they don't have enough. That they will never be able to live up to the kinds of standards or expectations of us that they would like to, that they will never be able to reach the kind of ideal life or lifestyle that other people that they see on social media have. And I think that's really debilitating psychologically. It's very difficult for some people to deal with that. It's not just jealousy, it's a realization of just how massively, you know, unfair everything really is, I suppose. Because, you know, there's such an inequality of wealth and opportunity. That, you know, it means that for some people, no matter how hard they work, they'll never be able to afford the kind of homes, the kind of cars or holidays or furniture or decor or whatever that they see online. You know, they'll never be able to reach that. And that's really, really, it's really a very negative thing to constantly live in a state of comparison. It's a really unhealthy way to live, but we all do it. We're all guilty for it. We all have that concept of, you know, keeping up with the Joneses type thing. And so that makes us feel like our lives are not worthy, that we're not good enough in the world, that we don't have anything to offer, that we don't have anything, that we're not special, that we're not. And it's just like we just don't feel like we are good enough because of it. We shouldn't live like that. We shouldn't. You know, that's really the truly disastrous impact of social media, I think, is that this digital comparison culture now, that's so prevalent, and just all the argumentative aspects of social media, and just all the toxic, just just really dysfunctional individuals with a keyboard and a mouse that just have got an axe to grind, or just got overblown egos, or just not particularly pleasant individuals for whatever reasons. They just want to have a power trip, they just want to have a sense of control and power. And you just see it, it's just so common now across virtually all social media, but especially Facebook and YouTube. It's everywhere. There's people arguing, people just tit for tat, point scoring, insulting each other. Just really ugly and just really very unpleasant stuff to see, really. And I think some people just want to disconnect themselves from it. As much as I like aspects of social media, I don't feel very connected to it that much anymore, apart from YouTube, really, and Facebook, a bit of Reddit every now and again, the odd glance at Instagram. I don't keep up with I very rarely follow many people these days. I might subscribe to the odd channel here and there on YouTube, but for the most part, I don't really keep up with anybody anymore. I don't do that whole, I've got to check 50 different channels to see what they've uploaded or whatever. I'm just past all that now. I really couldn't give a fuck anymore. It's like, I just don't really care. I think we're in decline, I think. At this point, I really do. I think we're in managed decline globally in many, many ways. And I think that the internet is actually speeding that up. But, AI is gradually increasing in its intellect and its capabilities, and before you know it, people won't be doing anything themselves anymore. Whether that takes 20 years from now, 30 years, I don't know, but 40 years. But I think at some point, a lot of people just won't really do much for themselves anymore. It's virtually everything, besides a few things, will be done by AI. It'll be done for them. Or AI will be used to help you do something. Technology will advance to such an extent that you don't have to really, truly, properly really learn anything anymore, because you can put devices on your fingers, or your feet, or on your eyes, or on your ears, and maybe even connected up to your brain somehow, probably. The use of VR headsets and virtual reality will change the way in which people, for the most part, will meet each other. I'd say overall, education will change. Communication will change because of it. And I don't think that the future is... I just don't really think that the future is very... I don't know. I don't think the future is actually going to be as great as people might like to think that it's going to be. It will certainly be interesting, but I don't think it's... Maybe in terms of, to some extent, maybe in terms of education or health, it might be better in some ways, but I think there will be a lot of consequences that come with the gradual increase and universality of what the word is. The gradual global incorporation of AI technology, whether that's software or or physical technology with AI. I don't know however it will work. I think our futures are being robbed away from us, actually. It's already happening anyway. So again, I come back to, that sense of despair and losing hope, and that's where I kind of feel myself these days in many respects. I'm not suicidal, but I definitely feel a sense of despair, and I definitely don't have as much hope anymore. That is absolutely for sure. I don't really have any real true expectations on other people these days. I don't really have any real hopes anymore. I think I just feel disillusioned with, I'd say, practically everything now. Technology, society, politics, business, employment, love, romance, friendships, even my past, future, and things that I used to want to care about. And now I just don't really feel like I do anymore. There are just certain things that have kind of fallen by the wayside as the years have gone on. I used to be quite interested in reading at one time and listening to music and even learning about some stuff, and I just don't really want to anymore. I almost just kind of just want to be left alone, I think, most of the time now. As sorry that comes across as being depressing and just defeatist, but I just kind of just not really that interested anymore. There are certain channels and things that I used to like to engage with and used to get involved in the live chats or even comment on things, but I just don't bother anymore now. I just don't have the. I just don't really care anymore. If I'm being honest about it. Let other people do. Let other people deal with all that kind of stuff. It's like let the younger generation talk about all of the complexities and conflicted ideas of whatever big philosophical questions or scientific questions or the difficult moral implications of things, or whether what is or isn't ethical or right or wrong in the world and blah 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 blah. But I don't care anymore. I really don't give a shit anymore. Let other people deal with that. Fuck them. What does it matter to me? I'm nearly fucking 40. You're fucking dead soon.